Today, I want to talk to you all about how to try and regain your creative and professional momentum. Do you feel like you've lost a little bit of that creative spark, that inspiration, that kind of drive, passion to keep taking photos, to keep being inventive, innovative with some ideas? Well, I felt like that recently, and no matter how busy or how quiet or whatever it is I'm going through, I will always get moments like this. Perhaps something in my personal life is affecting my work life or vice versa. And I will always come back to these things that I'm about to talk to you about to try and bring back some momentum in what I'm doing. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is something I touched on in a previous video, and that is to remind yourself why you started doing this in the first place. A lot of people don't realize that we have to be, as photographers, we have to be so many different things to different people in different situations. We have to be so many different versions of ourselves to be creative, consistent, successful, and good at what we do. We have to be good marketers, great storytellers, quick at learning new skills, adapting to new environments, good at socializing, great at communication, good problem solvers, and of course, patient. With all that in mind, it's really easy to understand how and why you can get lost in all of that chaos and inadvertently lose sight of all the things that make you happy. Now, there are elements to all of that I love, some more than others. It's rare to find people who are super creative to be really, really good at marketing and sales and putting yourself out there in that sense. And at the end of the day, I started this journey because all I wanted to do was take pictures. All I wanted to do was tell stories. I wanted to tell other people's stories. So when we feel a little bit lost or uninspired, we need to try and remind ourselves what it was initially that really got us going and what gave us that passion and drive. And not only that, we must know how to go back to that on a regular basis. So on that note, I really want to talk to you about the importance of personal projects. Personal projects are so important for so many different reasons. Reason one being that it keeps you busy, it keeps your mind busy, it keeps you stimulated, and also it allows you to do the things that you truly love. There will be occasions, of course, when you're doing paid jobs that don't particularly excite you or really get you going. That's completely normal. And that is another reason why it's so important to do the work that you really truly love doing. Without the pressure of a client there as well, it really allows you to play and experiment and take risks that you otherwise might not do on a paid job. And of course, the really important one is clients will be able to see who you are at your very, very best. Something that I found really interesting very recently is I went and did a load of go-sees with different creative directors and art directors from lots of different brands and agencies. And the burning question that I had in my mind was, what is it that they're going to want to look at? I'm going to go and see lots of different people from lots of different brands and disciplines and styles. How do I put my work together that will kind of please everyone? Do I put different portfolios together? How much do I split between personal work and commercial work? Do I put the commercial work at the beginning and then end on the personal, or the other way around? And I did a lot of thinking, a lot of flipping around, so many different versions and variations. At the end of the day, what I felt most comfortable with was putting the stuff I loved at the beginning, because I felt like that is the stuff that's going to have the biggest impact. It was a risk, and I wasn't sure if my personal, super creative, kind of more abstract work was going to interest the likes of someone at Adidas, for example. However, I stuck to my guns, and that was the decision I made. Interestingly, when I saw that creative director, the first thing they said when they opened my book was, I am so, so happy to see that you've put your personal work, the stuff you love doing, the stuff that shows you at your best at the start, because this is who you are. This is the kind of person that you are. This is you when you are completely let free. And that is what they wanted to see. They actually didn't want to see sports. They didn't want to see trainers and tracksuits and things like that. They wanted to see who I was as a photographer, as a person. And that initial impression is everything. So don't ever undermine the importance and the impact that your personal work can have on anyone. Now, I should also say 80% of the big commissions that I've had have actually come off the back of personal projects. A really great example of this is how I was commissioned to do a massive 1.5 year long project for the W Edinburgh that's just opened here recently. Back in 2012, I was very new to photography, and creating, and I was still trying to find and define my own style. And at the time, it was very easy for me to go, right, what do clients want to see? Who are the clients that I want to get? And although that was a very important question to ask myself, at the time I felt like I just needed to play. I just needed to figure out who it was that I wanted to be and what style it was that I wanted to project to the world. That in itself is incredibly important for finding clients. You know, there's very little value in trying to please everybody. It's really important to find your niche, your style. This is how you're going to stand out amongst the noise. So while I was still living and working up north in the Highlands of Scotland, I started collaborating with my sister, who is an amazing storyteller and digital artist, and someone who's inspired me for a really long time. And together we created a fine art, photo, digital, mixed media collection and exhibition that was inspired by the folklore, myths and legends of the Scottish Highlands, which was expressed through the human form, of course. I had very few resources at the time. You know, I was living very far away from the central belt, from makeup artists, hairstylists, models and things like that. And I really did it on a minimal budget and a very minimal team. However, it was probably the most worthwhile thing that I could have done because it formed the basis of my style and my practices today. What I couldn't have anticipated was the email that I received 10 years later on from that project from the architects for the W Edinburgh, telling me that they found one of my images from that very collection online. They absolutely loved it. It fit their brief perfectly, and they really wanted to feature it inside the hotel guest rooms. Little did they know that I was in fact living a 15-minute walk away from the hotel that they were building. I was still working as a professional photographer, and I saw a fantastic opportunity to create a whole new series that was bigger and better than I'd done before. Now, yes, you could argue that 10 years, that's quite a slow burn for getting a job out of a personal project, but the idea is that you never know where these things are going to come up and you never know when they're going to come up. So consistency of constantly creating, moving forwards, adapting, learning, being innovative, it's so important to keep those things up in and around the commissions and the jobs. You may end up shooting something that you think isn't that great, or something that you feel doesn't represent or reflect your true skills or talents or what you were feeling at the time, but I can guarantee that it will mean something to someone. That image that I shot back in 2012, it was a representation of where I was at the time. I was very new to photography. It was very raw, of course, and I wouldn't say it reflects where I am today for sure. But someone somewhere found value in it. Someone somewhere loved it and felt it completely reflected and represented what they wanted to do. I could never have anticipated that. I could never have thought, I'm going to put this out there in my portfolio because someone's going to love it. I've kind of discarded that whole collection now because it's old. But who knows who's going to see it and who's going to love it. Okay, finally, I want to talk to you about building a framework for your daily life, a variation on what I would describe as a routine. Now, when I'm in a rut, there's one thing that I constantly hear all the time, and that is find a routine. A solid routine will keep your mind and body in check. Now, while I believe that this is very helpful for a lot of people, I personally have found it unhelpful. Everyone is different and everyone has designed their lives differently. And the reason I've found this unhelpful is because in life and in business, there is not one linear path to success or growth. Like buildings, it is not built with one massive piece of concrete, but rather lots of different materials that do different jobs in order to hold it all together. So, like life, it is an ever-growing, ever-developing framework of lots of different experiences, failures, successes, emotions, thousands of hours of memories. And these little nuggets of life determine the contents of what I like to describe as your toolkit. There can never be one golden fix for something that is ever-changing. So think of your toolkit as a metaphorical box filled with different things that you can pull on and pick up and drop whenever you need in order to keep things moving forwards. I began intentionally writing those things down for myself during lockdown. And these could be so many different things. They don't have to be related to photography or related to your profession, but they could also be hobbies as well that are completely unrelated. For me, I've got things like hill walking, I love baking, I love running, I love weight training. Sometimes I just need to do a massive spring clean and clear the chaos from my own personal environment because it's a mess and that's adding to the mess in my mind. It completely depends on where you are in your head at that moment. And it's important to know what you need and when. So sometimes I will know that I need to be sociable and I need to go and speak to people. I need to clear things off of my mind. I need to hear new perspectives. There's so many different things that you could pull on. And it's just a case of understanding what they are, sitting down and writing them down and seeing them in front of you. And if you're anything like me and you are naturally drawn and attracted to chaos, then this is something that will really help not take the chaos away, but create order. I think it was William Blake that said, "The tigers of wrath are wiser than the horses of instruction." And I love that quote because it really does make me feel more comfortable in the idea of working better in chaos and understanding how to create order within that. I think it's very tempting to want to take chaos away and eliminate it from our lives. But I think you have to accept that there will be parts to your personality and parts to your trait that you don't need to take away, but you need to understand when they're helpful and when they're not so helpful. For example, I am by nature a total perfectionist. And while being a perfectionist has made me really, really good at certain things, it's made me very good at my job. There are also occasions where being a perfectionist doesn't serve me, and it's knowing when to put that aside and say, I feel that you want to be this person right now. I feel that you want to take control of everything right now, but now is not the time. I'll come back to you later. I hope you found that helpful, and I hope you feel more inspired and a little bit more motivated to be creative again, play and work on something new. Please let me know in the comments if there's anything in particular that you'd like me to talk about, or if there's anything I've touched on in this video or previous videos that you want me to develop a little bit further. As I said before, it's really important that I'm putting stuff out there that is really helpful and motivating for you guys. So just let me know.